actually felt pretty good about that. I thought, you know, this is a pretty neat place. I'd really like to spend a little more time here, because just being able to capture that view out the window is something that you never really completely get your mind around. And so I tried to share it as best I could with you guys through tweeting these photos, and you'll see some of those in the video as well. And but it just I couldn't seem to replicate what I was actually seeing with my eyes, because you're missing the motion and the vibrant colors in the backdrop of the blackness of space. I couldn't quite. I tried to voice that in my words, but showing the image. So what I tried to do, you probably noticed in the early part of my tweeting, I actually called to our camera folks. I said, you know, I want to replicate what I'm actually seeing with my eyes, and so what lens would be the best for that? So they had me target somewhere between 24 and 28 millimeters, somewhere in there, to kind of replicate what we were actually seeing with the curvature of the Earth and everything. I know Fyodor Yurchikhin was our Soyuz commander going up, and I spent the 6 months with him. He was just a terrific photographer, and he had a 1200 millimeter lens, and so he was more the close-up and up close and personal with the photos. And in fact, I remember one day he came floating down to the U.S. segment. He goes, "Hey Doug, check this out." And it was Washington D.C. And we actually saw people walking on the stairs of the Capitol. Wow. Hey, I think I'm going to need to report this, you know. And then he had pictures of Machu Picchu, and you could see the roads winding up the mountain and everything, just tremendous. And so we actually sort of complimented each other with the way that we were taking photos. And he let me borrow some of his, and he borrowed some of mine, because I wanted to kind of get that more oblique view, so you could see what it really looks like to look at the curvature of the Earth and to kind of experience the beauty of the Earth from space. Now, Earth from space is, first of all, it's actually more dramatic when you go outside on the spacewalk, because you're sort of in this fishbowl helmet, just like this guy has on here, and it takes you just milliseconds to realize that the only thing between you and the vacuum of space is this thin little visor. And so you take very good care of your visor and your helmet while you're outside in the spacewalk. But the brilliance of the Earth, and actually the Earth is actually very, very distracting. When you go outside, we go outside to do work. And when you have this just an unbelievable contrast of, on the outside of the space station, everything is pretty sterile. You know, it's like either white or black or some form of gray or metallic. You know, and then you look at the shuttle, it's the same way, and so it's kind of boring and unexciting. And you look out into deep space, and the vastness and the darkness of deep space, and it's actually quite frightening. It really, really is. I remember being on STS-120 back 3 years ago. I was in the robotic arm, and I was carrying a big piece of hardware it weighed about 750 pounds, but I was just holding it real tight. I was on the end of that arm, and the arm kind of swung out where I was. Earth and the arm and the space station and the space shuttle were all kind of behind me this way, and the Earth. And I was looking into deep space holding this thing. And because you're floating in space, you're actually floating in your suit as well. So you're kind of bobbing inside of your suit, so you can't really feel that your feet are, so I kept kind of kicking my heels out, making sure my feet are locked in there. And I thought, wow, how frightening this really is. You know, just I hope that tether's holding. You know, and I continue to look down. I remember Paolo Nespoli, who's up there now. Paolo, you may be following him on Twitter. If you're not, you should. He's actually tweeting in English and in Italian, I believe. And really, really a great, he's sending down some great pictures, and he's a wonderful photographer. But Paolo was flying the arm when I was, actually, Stephanie Wilson was flying the arm when Paolo was our intervehicular kind of choreographer when we were outside on STS-120. And so I'm holding this big piece of hardware, staring into deep space, and just really frightened stiff. And Paolo said, "Hey, I need you to give me a glove check." And I'm thinking, like, I'm holding on to this thing, you know. I don't even know if I'm still attached to the arm, you know. I'm just kind of hoping and praying I am. And he wants me to check my gloves, you know, and report back to Houston. And so I had to politely tell him, I was like, hey, whenever I, you know, can get back to the safety or confines of either the space station or the payload bay of the shuttle, I'll give you a glove check then, you know, so we kind of kidded around a little bit about that. And so, but floating in that suit is quite a dramatic experience. But then looking at the Earth and when you see this blackness of space, and then you look at the Earth is so much like an explosion of color and life and motion. It's just unbelievable. It really takes your breath away, and you really can't describe it in words. And it's actually very, very distracting when you're trying to do work. And I remember I kind of had my work in here, and I was doing my work, and I'd see here comes the coast of Africa, or and we're traveling at 5 miles per second. So we're actually going around the globe once every 90 minutes. So it's rotating. We're rotating around it pretty quickly. So you really get a sense of speed and motion when you look at the Earth, and it is quite distracting. And I remember specifically saying, I was so thankful that every 45 minutes we either get a sunrise or a sunset. So I was ready for that sun to go down so I wouldn't have this explosion of color right in my face so I could get my work done. I thought, well, surely it'll be better when we get into darkness, when the Earth gets into darkness, and not so. I remember the sun going down, and I heard Paulo call out, okay, make sure your lights are on, your glove heaters are on, because it gets pretty cold in the darkness as well. And then I started doing my work, and I saw something kind of like flash, below me, and I looked, and I saw like a puffs of lightning, on the Earth, and then like fingers of lightning shooting out, and then an aurora kind of dancing like across the sky at the northern pole, and I thought, man, this place is what a raging place. And I looked down, of course, you could see the city lights, and I thought I was praying for the sun to come up, So it's actually a little more distracting at night because you begin, but the Earth at night is so. That's why I tried to focus a lot of my attention on taking the city lights at night or coastlines at night, because it is just mesmerizing what happens when the Earth goes into shadow and you're looking at the darkness of the Earth, and then you can still see this raging place in the middle of this vast sea of nothing, and that really makes you think what a wonderful place we live in. And I always thought to myself, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. I thought I worked so many years and studied so long to come to space, and I was there now, and I thought to myself, I said, how wonderful it would have been had I been born and lived in space, and I was able to see that blue planet. I think, like, man, one day I want to go there, And it was such a strong feeling that it's way more profound than actually my dream of going to space. I thought, what a beautiful place, and if you're looking at that place from deep space, you'd think to yourself, man, that looks like an explosion of life and color. I want to go there. I want to see what that place is like. And so coming back to the planet was just a wonderful, wonderful experience as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I wanted to